Kyle said, what are some interesting ways to create dimensionality in abstract painting? And can you talk a bit about whether depth is even important or desirable? So it's interesting because I know that dimensionality and depth is very important when you're working in representational painting, whether it's, the figure or landscapes or still lifes. And I've done all of that, or portraits. I've done all of that in the past, and that was very important. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an abstract painting. In fact, much abstract painting is very kind of flat and that kind of contemporary flat look, like Matisse started flattening the figures and things like that. However, that said, it's really up to you if you're drawn to that kind of dimensionality and creating depth. It's totally up to you. And there are some things you can do. I don't tend to think about it when I'm painting because I'm just in this kind of abstract expressionist, very intuitive mode. So I don't tend to think about depth or depth perception like I used to when I painted landscapes and things like that. But, you can use the principles from representational painting. And there are some principles in abstract painting that you can play with. And so, hold on a second, I wrote down some here. So one of the first ones that came to mind was the kind of overlaps where, so you're not really trying to create depth, but when you overlap things, like if you were like, how Bryce Martin does that continuous line and you never know where it started or where it stopped, and then it's getting on top of things. So it's intersecting and it's coming over something, and that can create a perception of depth. Just that, like if you did a continuous line painting. Also, Hans Hofmann talked a lot about push-pull, and I talk about push-pull in a painting where you've got a painting, and then you go back into the painting, and when you go back into a painting that perhaps is dried already, you don't want it to look like you just pasted it on or tacked it onto the painting. So, and I've got some videos on this on YouTube, I believe, but actually in the last blog post on Sunday, I have a video on my blog on artistjourney.com. Look at the most recent blog post and you'll see a demo that I did on there of it's really kind of going back into a painting and integrating and weaving in your marks and lines and shapes into the painting. And so there's like these lost and found edges, pushing and pulling, what's in the background, what's in the foreground, and that type of thing. So you can play with that. So you might want to watch that demo. And then, hold on just a second. Then there's some other things that I wrote down here. Right. Okay. And then, of course, there's things we can do from representational painting if you want. If you really want to run with this and play with it. Things like playing with value. So we know that light values in representational painting have this concept, this perception of receding because of the atmospheric particles between you and what you're seeing. So things get grayed off and lighter value as it goes off into the distance. So the darker value is coming forward, the lighter is receding. You might play with that and see if that does something for you. You can, if you want, kind of put in some lines that start to become like shadows, where you put a line in and then smudge it over, and that could look like a shadow that could create some kind of sense of depth. You could work with color. So chroma, like bright things tend to pop forward and grayed off things tend to recede. You could work with heavy lines versus light lines. So the heavier ones are popping forward, the lighter ones there's a perception that they're falling away. And texture, so texture tends to pop forward. Also impasto brush strokes come forward and then smooth things recede. And so there's a few more things. Hold on, because I was thinking about this, how we might play with that. And yeah, so edges, dark edges come forward, light edges recede. And then lastly, you could play with a, kind of that life-death life cycle where we talk about veiling. So you could play with activating the canvas with expression, with assertiveness, okay? And that's going to pop forward. And then you could play with, when you start to go in and veil and knock back some things, that makes it seem to be disappearing or receding. In fact, it kind of grays it off, mutes it down, has this sense of receding. And then if you knock it out completely, then it's gone. So you could play, just even playing with veiling and covering and reasserting is right there a sense of depth. It's here, it's coming forward, it's starting to fall back and fall away and disappear. Just like in life, in nature, we see this. So those are some thoughts, and I think that's a very interesting question and something really fun to explore if that's something you want to do. And it's not necessary, but it is interesting. So you can play with that. I know that there are times when we look at art and we say, wow, and it's very abstract. It's like, wow, that has some kind of sense of depth. And I think oftentimes it's one of these things, or several of these that we've just talked about, is happening in there. And it may not even be that it's your intention to do that, but it happens as you play with veiling, flux basically, as you play with flux. Just that will create differences in terms of depth perception. So anyway, hope that's helpful. That definitely got me thinking about, yeah, what is it that's going on there when we play with depth?